and welcome to Corporate Roadshow. I'm Dana, and I'm here today with Keith Knutson, Dr. Keith Knutson of the Vaccine and Gene Therapy Institute of Florida. Welcome.
Thank you.
Of course. And how are you collaborating with Tapimmune? How is that process working?
Well, our collaboration started from my interest in developing vaccine approaches to prevent recurrence in patients with breast cancer. And we had been interested in looking for industry partners to help us get it out into the commercial space so that we can test to see if it is going to be effective. In the process of doing that, we were introduced to Glenn Wilson, CEO of Tapimmune, and our technology seemed to be something that paired well with the technology that he's been developing. And so we came to an agreement to move forward and try to see if we can develop something for the patients with breast cancer and other cancers as well.
Very nice. So what is your research entailed so far on your end, and then how did it interact with Tapimmune?
Well, one of the nice things about the type of research that we've been engaged in is we've been addressing immunity in patients with cancer themselves. So we're trying to understand the immune system so that we can harness it. So a lot of the technologies that have been developed in the past have been from the laboratory mouse upward. And what we know is that strategy doesn't always pay off. And so translational medicine, and what I mean by that is looking at or studying biology in the patients themselves or in humans themselves really can help us put together a nice, cohesive approach that would be effective in humans. And that's what we did, is essentially started digging into patients with breast and ovarian cancers to look at various immune-related substances. And we pulled out a number of different key observations that we're able to formulate into a vaccine, essentially. So that really is the key point for us, is translational medicine, working with humans and helping us identify what we need to do in humans.
And what type of results have you seen so far? Encouraging?
So the fact is, we've been working on vaccines in our group for approximately 15 years. And we've seen a number of encouraging results, and we get better at the vaccines that we're working on. And so certainly some of the earlier vaccines weren't as good because we just didn't have the technology. But nonetheless, those vaccines, at least in small subsets of patients with breast cancer, are showing great results in preventing disease. And so some of the work that we're doing with Glenn and Tapimmune entail a better knowledge of the immune system. And in fact, we believe will cover more of those patients. So we hope and we believe certainly that this will be a more effective approach. But nonetheless, we continue to be encouraged by the early observations that we have with some of the older vaccines that we've been developing.
Very interesting. And how does it work? Does it work in conjunction with the traditional therapies that are happening now, like chemotherapy and radiation? Would this eradicate that medicine? What's the process like?
So the traditional paradigm for breast cancer is there's surgical removal and treatment with chemotherapy. And then the patients are monitored closely year in and year out for recurrence. And you can recur in 2 months, you can recur in 15 years. And then you're typically treated again with chemotherapies that aren't targeted. They cause a lot of damage. And so what we want to do is we want to intervene early when patients are after treatment and that have very minimal disease. And we'll stimulate the immune system, and the immune system is very specific. So it actually carves itself out and specifically recognizes the cancer. And so we can do that to generate this very specific immune response that can last for years. And so the hope is that we can stimulate the immune system just like with a vaccine against measles, just like a vaccine against polio, etc., to develop immunity that can last for years and prevent that recurrence that typically happens. And by doing so, we eliminate the need for these patients to take these harsh chemotherapies that would cause a lot of damage to various organs and other problems as well.
That's interesting. And as we were talking about earlier, that this science, this technology could actually be used outside of cancer as well. And is that also specifically targeted if you had some type of ailment and some, autoimmune illness or like MS or anything like that? Does the science work in that way also?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the technologies we can, I had mentioned before that we need to learn from the humans. And so by going into cancer and utilizing these vaccines, we will gain a lot of understanding about the actions of vaccines and particularly the role of the immune system in autoimmunity, for example, and how specific is it and what are the elements of that specificity and that memory. And so ultimately we can use that broader knowledge to tackle some of these other diseases as well.
Beautiful. And what would make an investor interested in innovation like this?
Well, I think that the crux is that we have so much new understanding of the immune system these days. And so we're in the middle of a revolution and we need to apply that to the patients. And so these are very specific things that we're working with, very specific antigens that are expressed in multiple cancers. And so it is key technology that's been developed that they would be interested in because it's something that can be identified for them and fit into their long-term plans for developing therapies. That would be something that would be they could fall back on. It could be protected by patents, for example.
Beautiful. And what's the projected future of Tapimmune and this science?
Well, I think that ultimately we partnered with Tapimmune because they have certain technologies that they've been developing, and we have the projects that we've been developing that we've partnered with them on to develop. And I think that ultimately there'll be a number of different pathways for Tapimmune. I'm not part of Tapimmune, so I don't get to make those decisions. But from the perspective of what we work on, I think it fits nicely into the technologies that they have. And ultimately, I think it will work for the patient population that I'm familiar with is breast and ovarian cancer. But going back to what you said, because we'll have a broader understanding of how the system works and the fact that the immune system is involved in other diseases and as well as infectious diseases, I think personally that they'll be able to use that knowledge to move forward into other disease settings as well, depending on the decisions that they make.
Beautiful. Okay, and how could I find out further information?
So further information can be gleaned from the Tapimmune website. And also, I just moved down to the Vaccine and Gene Therapy Institute in Florida, and we'll soon be putting up some information on the web at their website.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for joining us on Corporate Roadshow. Again, if you'd like any further information, it's tapimmune.com or the Vaccine and Gene Therapy Institute of Florida for further information, and also corporateroadshow.com. Thank you so much.